Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome to the Port Haven Q1 earnings report. Um, I am Executive Chief Officer Professor Django here with Chief Executive Officer Yoda Bauer. Here to clue you in, all you investors, on our earnings and other business stuff here for Q1 2019. Oh, you're not. You're not. There we go. That should work
There you
now.
go.
Yep.
Like a true webinar. Couldn't hear everybody.
Yeah, so the Q1 earnings conference call is starting now. You can dial 1 on your rotary phone to speak to the operator if you
Yep.
would like to be put through for a question.
hmm
Um, but we are here today to share with you our earnings and profit reports from the first quarter of 2019. Just like Disney did yesterday,
Yep.
going over
Yep.
all of their businesses. Yes, we are in our fanciest business get up today because
hmm
that's how we do business stuff here at Port Haven.
Business.
Um,
Much business.
yep, all the business is going on here. So we're going to walk you through our portfolio, our earnings, our revenue standards,
hmm
our DTCI information, and
Yep.
basically everything you need to know as an investor in Port Haven.
Yep.
So our first report is going to be from our YouTube uh,
hmm
section of our portfolio,
Yes.
and Yoda Bauer, I think you have some statistics for us, don't you?
I do have some statistics. So here in my report, let's see here, going to the correct page of my report, which is not just an email that I happened to get today. So up in this quarter, as opposed to last month, we have gained 45 subscribers. We got 3,759 views. 11,777 minutes were watched. 318 likes. 539 comments. 539 posts, which is apparently different than a comment, and 15 shares. We're done in this January quarter.
Now I have a question. Did you say 1,100 or 11,000 minutes that were watched?
11,000. I don't know what I said, but it's 11,000.
Do you have any information on how many of those 11,000 minutes come from toilets?
From toilets? Well, we ran a Twitter poll about Twitter, not about YouTube.
Yes, yes.
I think that anybody who said that they have never toilet tweeted lied. Oh boy, that's great. Um, that was also, that data comes from our secondary affiliate side corporation that we are in the process of acquiring, which is Yoda Bauer streaming services. We have information. We have information on the Yoda Bauer streaming services. Of course, we have not fully acquired them from Fox yet, but
Right.
once we get full amounts from their growth, much smaller. 5 subscribers with 120 views. But it should be noted that they were having many technical issues. Also, they did not release Black Panther this year. Therefore, their numbers were considerably lower.
That makes sense. I was going to ask you, do you feel like the content on this Yoda Bauer streaming platform that we are acquiring, does it match our family standards at Port Haven? Or does your views on Deadpool mean that it will be a primarily more mature source of content for viewers?
Well, the Yoda Bauer streaming platform is primarily Deadpool and Bioshock. Therefore, it does not fully match the family standards, but it at the same time it opens up a wider array of revenue that will not be monetized because it's rated R.
Yes.
So therefore, I guess it doesn't really matter. But the Deadpool effect is in full bloom on that channel.
I thought I would give a brief update as well on the blog site portion of our earnings portfolio,
Yes.
and discuss the revenue standards for the blog site
All
as
right.
well. Revenue is pretty standard
Mm-hmm.
on blog sites, not so much on ours, but I'm told that is standard in other places. The big thing to note, in addition to the number of posts that have gone up, that roughly equals the number of YouTube videos, since
Mm-hmm.
those get auto posted on the blog site.
Yes.
But the big thing to note, that while this did not all take place in Q1, I think we can report now that from October through January of
Mm-hmm.
the last year into this calendar year, we did
Mm-hmm.
in fact get over 65,000 spam comments on the
That's
blog site, most of which appear to be in Russian, um,
ooh, yes.
to show our penetration into international markets.
Yes.
And a fair amount of them do not fit into our family friendly content on Port Haven as it was.
Nor would they. I think they would exceed even the boundaries of the Yoda Bauer channel.
Yeah, probably. I think they would be something that would make Deadpool have a question as well.
That's
um,
distinctly possible.
um, and then we also of course have other content platforms
Mm-hmm.
that we mention. The one that I think we've been most disappointed in Q1 is our Tumblr account.
Yes.
And that is significantly due to the fact that I don't remember what it is or how to access it.
Yes.
Um,
And what furthermore drives the loss in revenue is the fact that all the Raylos have left Tumblr due to standards that you can no longer post, shall we say, particular types of fan art on Tumblr.
yeah, standards that are not revenue standards.
Yes.
Those are different things. Um,
However, how are we on? We launched a new platform in Q1.
we did. Let me pull up some statistics on that really quick. This will all
Okay.
be part of the printed report that will be available, maybe at some point afterwards.
Yes.
Um,
Domestically or domestically?
yes, both actually.
Yes.
So we launched our Instagram DTC direct to consumer platform
Mm.
to our subscribers there on January 7th, in this year, still in Q1.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, we have acquired 58 followers there on Instagram, which is a little more than half of the accounts that we are following, which is actually pretty nice because most of the people who are our followers are not accounts that we are following. So it's
Woo.
not a follow to follow ratio, which particularly in the early days of social media direct to consumer content platforms was
Streaming. Yes.
a big thing. And we have done 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 33 different posts there on Instagram. So for our subscribers there, they will notice that we have discussed adjusting our subscription rates on our Instagram, but currently Instagram doesn't allow us to charge people for following us. So that may be a hurdle that we have to look forward to if we're talking about long-term growth of the platform.
Right. We also in the previous month of December launched Discord,
Yes.
which is bringing in about as many earnings as Instagram, as once again we cannot charge people for joining. Therefore, it's equal revenue. But it's been a very good platform. Mostly, we post memes and play with Thanos Snap to see if we get erased from existence.
Right. Speaking of Thanos, I was wondering if the release of both Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame in Q2 will impact any of what we can expect in our terms of our long-term earning projections for the rest of fiscal year 2019.
I think that it is possible that it could increase, specifically if there is promotional material for a franchise that goes along with Endgame that might create secondary interest in our primary platform that may generate engagement that has not previously been seen.
In terms of our theme park portion of our portfolio, do you plan on going to any this year?
I plan on spending as much time at the Port Haven theme park as possible. However, we will not talk about where it is, when it is opening, or what will be there, because theme parks are capable of being sentient and advertising themselves.
Exactly. I would imagine if we were just to tweet, "Hey, we're open," that would probably be marketing enough.
That would be fine. I know personally that when I publish a YouTube video and do not tell anyone that it's been published, that it gets more views than any video where I market it. Therefore, marketing is wrong.
I mean, that only makes sense.
Only makes sense. However, we did see an increase in one area of marketing when, due to political season, we released the Kylo Ren attack ad, and that did generate some engagement.
And speaking of engagement, you mentioned earlier one of our DTC consumer platforms subgroups is the Raylo community. What impact do you think the Raylo community has on likes, on subscriptions, on comments, on any of our DTC content from Q1?
In general, I find that Raylo engagement tends to be fast, furious, and entirely all over the place, in such a way that it is almost as if they are enjoying the platform that they use, as opposed to using a platform for the primary basis of being angry.
I mean, that does seem quite exceptional among the user base on certain consumer platforms these days.
Almost every study I've conducted says that anger, frustration, and generally treating people poorly is the best way to gain revenue.
You mentioned also that the Raylo subgroup tends to post in both a fast and furious way. Do they also post in a Tokyo Drift way?
I do believe there are some in Tokyo, yes.
That would stand to reason. Sorry, just getting a notification here that we've actually increased our profits from Q1 higher than what we thought. It's actually 3 times what we had reported earlier.
That's good. That's great.
So investors will be happy to know that.
To know, yes. I will say that in general, there has been some more, shall we say, interesting engagement, wherein people will come and watch a whole video that is primarily purposed to talk about a thing, and then only offer their distaste for the thing as a result.
Do you think that has anything to do with the release of ESPN Plus as a streaming platform in Q4 of last calendar year?
I think ESPN Plus is to blame for many things, including more hate engagement, government shutdowns, and the weather.
ESPN Plus is definitely to blame for the fact that I can't watch as many Manchester United games as I did last season. which has significantly decreased our willingness to do content and just general happiness
Mm-hmm.
here in our local branch of Port Haven Industries.
I would like to know what, if any, do you think video games have to, in terms of involvement, affect the world?
In general, I think video games tend to have a positive influence
Mm-hmm.
in the world. However, they have had a negative influence on my productivity since Q4 of last year, as most of my free time has been spent with Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm.
Even though I have only progressed to Chapter 2 of that game, despite logging around 70 hours all already. Um, I do want to say, though, in terms of Port Haven, I find that we are not good at developing video games of our own.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to play games that were developed by other people.
I
Um,
see.
so we may avoid video game development of our own in the future,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, that of course is not a legally binding statement. But that is what we can project for now.
Have you considered making video games about the actual property that you create, or are you only interested in creating one video game over and over many times?
That depends on our licensing deal with EA, which I think
Mm-hmm.
has gone off without a hitch.
Totally
I
fine.
don't think there have been any complaints about that from our DTC consumer base,
Mm-hmm.
and the revenue standards all seem fine with that. Um, we had a great success with our Loot Crate unboxing rollout, and
Yes.
I think that is likely to be the platform that we pursue in the future.
What if? How do you think it would affect revenue and stocks and business if we did loot crates during a film?
I think it would be an interesting way to pursue new revenue standards
Mm-hmm.
in DTC consumer streams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it would depend on whether or not those loot crates also required the purchase of an additional key,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
because that is the industry standard now that you purchase both the loot crate and the key to opening the loot crate, which makes a lot of sense. I think it could greatly enhance the film viewing experience. Once you got to essentially decide which characters lived and died based
Mm-hmm.
on what loot crate you opened,
Yes.
and the rarity of the popcorn bag. We've had some test markets where we have tested some different skins for popcorn bags as loot crate
Mm-hmm.
options, and those have been successful as well.
I think that perhaps we should consider both primary game content, such as deciding whether or not Ben Solo should be redeemed, but also popcorn cosmetics, but put them in the same loot crate so that when you buy one loot crate, you might redeem Ben Solo, but you might also get a Cars 5 cosmetic for your popcorn bag.
I do think that sounds like a good idea. It depends on
Mm-hmm.
the licensing agreement that we are currently pursuing. Obviously, that is not yet finished, and so
Mm-hmm.
we can't comment on all eventualities there. But the revenue standards look promising.
I have. It is my understanding that there is a lot of Cars merchandise that people actually buy.
Yes, I know this was surprising to a lot of our investors
Mm-hmm.
that cars is still a thing that people care about. Um, but I did consult with my nephew yesterday, and
Mm-hmm.
he does in fact have a new Tow Mater toy that he got for Christmas.
Mm,
That does speak to the persistent value of cars licensing deals going forward,
I see.
despite the
Um,
fact that Cars is like a 15-year-old franchise by now.
it is interesting to note that I don't think that they advertise for Cars toys at all, and yet they seem to sell.
I mean, that just proves our point earlier about marketing not being essential to financial success.
Yes,
I,
at
I,
all.
yeah,
Especially not for films.
yeah, especially not for films. Yeah.
Now, we have we've been talking about earnings and revenue quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit. I would like to say that for the most part, our revenue has not decreased
Yes, not at
at
all.
all. It is in fact remained steady, despite loads of controversy in the fandom world. I'm happy to say that last year we had a revenue of $0, and this quarter we also have a revenue of $0, which is a decrease of $0.
What do you? How do those projections hold up going into Q2? I'm interested to know if that $0 will remain steady, or if in fact it might be possible to earn a few hundred million.
Based off of projections such as Star Wars Resistance, and books and Star Wars Celebration, I think that it's looking at a steady zero. It might decrease in the second quarter when I go to Star Wars Celebration and spend all of my money.
Mm-hmm. That would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have, according to the operator here, we have one question that we
Oh,
would
okay.
like to field from an investor on the line who would like to know whether sports betting is part of our portfolio. This is the one question that we are answering, and it's good that this person used it on something as important as asking about how we feel about sports betting. So, do you think that's part of our portfolio going forward, or how can that impact the rest of fiscal year 2019?
Well, one of our most popular streams to date involved the World Cup,
Hmm.
in which Yoda Bauer made excellent predictions that were entirely true about what would happen in the World Cup.
Yes, Germany totally did not lose in the first round.
Nope. It won the whole thing, actually. Um, and that would increase, except for the World Cup is only once every 10 years, like a tetanus shot.
Yes,
Therefore,
exactly.
therefore, we may not see that revenue again for some time.
Yeah. Do you think that World Cup 2018, 10 years from the last one, will it
Mm-hmm.
all be impacted by the fact that Black Panther came out last year in Q1 and not this year in Q1?
I think if you triangulate between Black Panther, Deadpool 2,
Hmm.
and the World Cup, you will see an overall trend towards monetization and engagement in all second party platforms that are only indirectly to the consumer.
Yeah. Now, if you'll also note in our revenue report from Q1,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of Deadpool 2, Deadpool Once Upon a Time, or whatever that was called, was actually just a re release of Deadpool 2 with some of the swear words gone. I learned
Mm-hmm.
that from Wikipedia because I had to look it up. But that's
Mm-hmm.
also impacted there in our earnings report from this quarter.
Do you think the inclusion of Fred Savage has a positive or negative effect on revenue?
I think it can only have a positive impact due
Mm-hmm.
to the fact that younger people, who are our primary target demographic, totally know who Fred Savage is. Um, so I think that can only increase our revenue standards and DTC consumer projections going forward.
All right. Um, now, uh, so in the future for this Port Haven park that we're not going to advertise, we will tweet about exactly once a week after it opens, just for kicks.
Totally on
Um,
schedule, though.
totally on schedule. But you'll know it's on schedule because we have not released a schedule. Therefore, there is no schedule to compare it to. So, for all you know, it is in fact on time.
Exactly, yes.
Do you think that we will have a Deadpool ride at the Port Haven Park?
I'm uncertain. Again, it depends on our Fox licensing deal. I do know, in fact, that a Dark Moose ride is already underway, as well as a Twiddle ride, which mostly just tries to make you feel bad about your life choices, and argues that the park will not be open very long in the future.
How do you think adding the Dark Moose to Red Dead Redemption 2 would impact Black Panther?
Well, given that I've played the game for over 70 hours now and have yet to see a moose, even though all the online guides say that there is, in fact, moose in the game, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it could only help Deadpool 2 going into Q2 2019. Um, but again, that depends on our revenue standards and our DTCI information and our long term projections.
Do you think that Bob Iger has more or less of a plan than Dutch?
Well, given that Dutch doesn't seem to have a plan, my guess is that it's about roughly the same.
Okay.
Um, Bob Iger does tend to, in my experience, mostly let other people do most of the work and then claim success for it, which is exactly what Dutch Vanderlyn seems to do in Red Dead Redemption 2.
We seem to be able to keep from working approximately as well as they do on Saturday and live.
Mm-hmm. I did want to note there were some people that were expecting an announcement as part of today's stream.
Mm-hmm.
I do think you can tune into the Star Wars show for that announcement,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that it actually releases on time
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't feature Elijah Wood.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But as for anything else, you may have just sat through 30 minutes to not get any sort of announcement at all and really listen to people talk about very odd numbers that really don't mean anything.
but I do hope that was worthwhile for all of you, as you are all, as I know, big investors. We know we had the investor from Morgan Stanley on the
Mm-hmm.
phone asking about our credit rating um, earlier, and that has remained the same going forward into Q2. So I thought people might like to know that as well. Um,
But if you have missed any of the information, it will be streaming later on Hulu along with all songs from Mary Poppins Returns.
yes, very loudly, Mary Poppins returns. Um, I, uh, in case you wondered, Mary Poppins will continue on for at least 30 minutes if you let that play afterwards. Um, Judging by my personal experience in seeing how long Mary Poppins would continue to play
Mm-hmm.
after such a conference call ended, and then eventually 30 minutes later having to go do something else.
It For some of you, you may experience the live stream cutting Mary Poppins Returns mid song,
Hmm.
never to return.
Yeah, maybe so. Which is ironic, given that it's Mary Poppins returns. Uh,
Returns. He
exactly.
returned elsewhere.
Right. Exactly. Um, but I am actually in Facebook groups with Lin Manuel Miranda, so we do have potential licensing connections there.
Yes.
Do you have anything else to add to our Q1 profit and earning report?
Mostly, as a final word, just that the monetization and engagement of the analytics as seen through multiple sources, through YT apps as well as interfaces,
Mm-hmm.
overall show an upward trend towards the future that may hopefully continue to grow.
Yeah, I am positive. I'm bullish, in fact, on the future of Port Haven, the Star Wars Refuge. That one day we may have revenue standards, and um, eventually, and I'm bullish on our outlook going forward on all of our platforms, including our new Q1 editions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's going to do it for our earnings portion of this conference call. I do want to say before we transition into the next portion, for legal purposes, none of this has meant anything. And if words have meaning to you, do not base any financial decisions based off of them. Any risk assumed is your own.
But also keep in mind that the primary source in which we base all information off of is the performance of Deadpool.
Yes. And for further questions, our CFO, Nino Star, will continue to be on the line to answer those.
Yes.
But stay tuned for the rest of our Streamcast. This has been our Q1 earnings report.
Yes.
All right, and we're back.
Hey, everybody, hold on. Let me just do this really quick. So, some of you might be very confused.
I did that for as long as I could.
I was trying so hard, and I could not keep a straight face. Oh my gosh, that was great though.
So if you're unaware, yesterday Disney had their Q1 earnings conference call, and everyone, including YB and I, tuned in to see if they were going to announce a title for episode 9, which they did not, but
Nope.
Great fun was had nonetheless.
So yeah, there had been some hype. A lot of people had assumed that we'd get a title today, because in the past, I think it was a different earnings report. I think it was when the Cassian Andor show was announced or something like that.
Yeah.
And so people thought we might get this too. There was actually a lot of hubbub in Star Wars Twitter where people were either really hyped or mad at people for being really hyped, and it was a pretty amusing day. But Django and I actually listened into a financial report call that was 40 minutes and live tweeted the whole thing.
And I understood about as much of it as I did what we said for the last half hour.
Yes. But we were so inspired that we decided we would do it. Because it was this really weird thing where it was not just us. There were so many people on Twitter that were all listening to this thing.
Right.
And it felt like we should engage. But also that's kind of a part of a larger conversation we did want to have after we had fun.
Yeah, because like one of the things that you and I were talking about, as maybe not as a result of the conference call, but using the conference call as kind of an instance of it, is basically internet hype around Star Wars and around fandom in general, I guess. Because some people really live for hype and other people are like definitely anti-hype.
Yep.
Both camps, irrespective though of like what the hype is about.
Right.
And I think it leads to like an interesting like type of internet relationship among people in the same fandom, that some people are just desperate for anything to be excited about, and some people are like not excited about anything ever.
Right.
And I don't know, it's really like, personally, I always am sort of a trust and verify kind of person. But I like to be expectant also. And I feel like it's like Qui-Gon says, you know, your perception determines your reality. And if it's up to me, I would rather be excited about something than not.
Right. And for me, I think it depends on what the end game goal is too, because I've been having a lot of really good conversations on Twitter. One of my good Twitter friends, Kelly at Team Ahsoka, she's not necessarily anti-hype, but she's kind of over it.
Right.
But she and I were talking, and I just kind of explained that for me, it's not the hype itself. It's not like I didn't need a title yesterday. I wanted a title yesterday, but I didn't need it. I wanted a day where all these fans were online at the same time, all excited about the same thing, talking to each other, celebrating something instead of fighting, which is something we have no end of, no matter what it is. And that was something we saw eye to eye on, absolutely. And as I talked to her and a few others, I found what most people are annoyed at, anybody really would be. So, like yesterday, Star Wars, the official account, dropped a Galaxy of Adventures episode on Twitter. And the comments were just all, where's the title, where's the title, where's the title, and people being obnoxious about it. And that kind of stuff I don't like. Or the people who were really expecting something yesterday and then are upset, or like Lucasfilm lied to us or whatever. And that kind of stuff I don't like either. But I like speculating, is there going to be a title and that sort of thing. And and I found that the more I actually engaged with and talked to people, no one really had a problem with the kind of tweets you and I were doing. It was the other stuff. But Twitter being the way Twitter is, people overgeneralize. And so people kind of having a fight they didn't need to have.
Well, and I think that kind of gets at one of the things that gets me about hype in general is, like, I like to get excited about things. I like to sort of join in that sort of anticipation for things. But it goes back to what you were saying, too, about what your expectations are. Because, like, if what makes it worthwhile is that you get exactly what you want, you are almost always going to be disappointed. And I feel like that is a place that a lot of Star Wars fandom finds itself right now, is it had expectations, whether it's about The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi or an announcement on an earnings conference call. And if those things don't play out exactly how you want, you feel betrayed, you feel lost, you feel as if something must be wrong. Irrespective of what the choices are, or the quality of those things. Like, I'm sure that earnings call was great and important and went over well for the people whose expectations were that they would find out how Disney did financially in Q1. But for people that come in with other expectations, if you put all of your, like, not necessarily self-esteem, I don't know the right word for it, but like if you connect your identity into getting the thing you want out of it, then you're almost always going to be disappointed. And I do think that leads to a lot of the negativity that we see on Twitter, or that we definitely saw among some people yesterday. Meanwhile, I had a fun time. And that's why I tweeted out from our Port Haven account, you know, if you didn't enjoy that, then you did it wrong, because I had a blast.
Well, and I think with that too, it kind of comes into this other part that we're seeing in fandom, which is this need to be right. And with The Last Jedi, that happened a lot, where people wanted to predict, you know, was Rey a Skywalker, was Rey not a Skywalker, you know, was Luke this, was Luke that. And there's a section of the fandom that ended up being right, that now feels very assured that they guessed correctly. And there's a segment of the fandom that's very upset because they didn't guess correctly. And I think that's where this kind of hype stuff comes in too, because I saw a lot of people like, guys, we're not getting a title. This isn't happened yet. And it felt like a bunch of people going around telling kids that, like, Santa Claus isn't real, which to any kids listening, of course Santa Claus is real. Don't listen to what anyone will tell you. But he lives on Endor. But
Hoth, please, come on.
But there's the Ewoks movies have a dude that really looks like Santa.
Oh, really? I've never seen that. So
it's pretty good. We have to do those. We have to do those as a stream one of these days. We really do.
Yeah, the last time I looked, they weren't on YouTube, so I'll have to figure out a way to watch them.
Yeah. But what I was saying is, it felt like it was, for so many people, it was more important to be right about whether or not we were going to get a title than it was that we we're going to get a title.
Right.
So it's more important to be right about whether or not there's a big Star Wars news announcement that day. And I don't think that was everyone, but I think that was definitely enough people that I noticed it. And I'm like, I don't care if I'm wrong. I want to have fun today, and I have an excuse to have fun. Yeah. It just so happened that it was a combination of weird tweets, and Anthony Daniels did a tweet that really set everybody off, but it's probably unrelated. We still don't know what it is. I feel bad for Anthony Daniels, who must be like, what did I do? I also like the idea of people from Morgan Stanley finding out that like 200 Star Wars fans all listen to that call.
I saw there were a lot of people that were posting stuff like more people listen to that earnings call than listen to your podcasts and stuff like that. I don't know. That was funny.
It definitely made
Like
me laugh.
there was so much going on Twitter in the moment that was just hilarious. And I think that's one of the things that I still enjoy that about Star Wars is the community. And I think that's one of the things that upsets me so much when people want to be so negative is because I just want to enjoy things with you, and I want it to be good, and I want it to be valuable and worthwhile, and what we want, and I don't want to say what we deserve, but what we've come to expect out of Star Wars. I want it to be good, but I want to enjoy it, and I want to enjoy it with other people, and I think that's one of the benefits. Like that's one of the things I have gotten in, I guess my almost 20 years now as part of Star Wars online communities, is that before that I just watched Star Wars by myself in my living room, and I read Star Wars books and only knew one other person out of all the people I knew in the world who read Star Wars books, and we have an opportunity to have so much more, and I think it's just a shame when we squander that, and like I kept thinking yesterday, the only other time I've had that kind of live community experience in Star Wars before was. We used to do these Google Hangouts for people from our forums, and we did one, I think it was at Celebration when the first Force Awakens trailer dropped.
Yep.
And like we discussed it all together then, and like that was so much fun. And like
the best part was you and I were also on Card Trader trying to pull a vintage.
Oh yeah.
While this was happening.
That was back when you could get like 3 vintages at once with
right. With the what was it? It was like the that was back in the day when you had like the city or the Mace Windu pack cheat.
Yeah.
Where like the odds were better and it was cheaper. Anyway, no one cares about this, but that was good times. Like early Star Wars Card Trader was good times.
But like that's what I got out of that yesterday. And like I went into it anticipating that we might get a trailer, but then I wasn't upset, or not a trailer, but a name.
A title, yeah.
But then I wasn't upset when we didn't, and I just had, like, especially once I realized that we weren't going to, I just had fun with it.
Well, there was a small part of me, I don't really know how to describe it. It wasn't really like disappointment. It was like that post-concert depression. Yeah. Like it's not that I didn't have fun. It was just this thing I was looking forward to was done, and I was feeling kind of down. But then you and I planned this stream today, and then I'm like, see, this was fun. Like if we had been on the hype yesterday and hadn't listened to the call, we wouldn't have thought of like doing this weird, silly thing that no one probably enjoyed anyway for half an hour.
I mean, I enjoyed it, and I think
I enjoyed it.
I mean, not to be like selfish about it, but like that was my thing yesterday. Like I had fun with it. Like, I'm sorry if you didn't, but I found a way to enjoy something that I don't know I will ever do again.
Right.
But it was
like the odds that I will listen to another call are pretty slim. But you know, we did it once.
Like I really want to make like buttons now that like you can wear around Celebration that like I was on the conference call. Were you? Like and just find other people that was like, yeah, I did that. That was dumb, but it was fun. Like that's I don't know.
Well, I was just joking around. It's like one day I'll tell my hypothetical grandchildren that I listened to a financial report because I was so excited, and they'll be like, "Okay," and then go back to playing Fortnite 5 or something.
By that time, I still won't know what revenue standards are.
I mean, that's the thing. Is actually the call was kind of interesting. I just didn't understand half the words.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to be like all these people. There were certain things where I'm like, did Bob Iger just say that marketing, like so much about Solo now makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think he's probably right about the theme park.
Yeah, I think he is.
Like, I think enough people go to Disney parks already, and people know that they're going to be a Star Wars. Like, as many people as went just for the debut of Star Tours.
Right.
Like I think the parks are going to do fine. But
I think that's fair.
but no, it's hard
funny.
not to draw those comparisons.
And then I remember we were listening to the questions, and I'm like, all these questions, like, why do we care about Hulu and Deadpool and like all of this stuff they kept asking about? And then there was the one lone hero who was like, why do your video games like not come out? And I was like, yes, thank you. And then he was like, well, we're not good at making video games, so we work with people who are good at making video games. And then it's like, about that.
I think one of my favorite things yesterday though was if you were following our live tweeting, you might have seen this, but I didn't have my phone on silent,
Right.
and I've got the it was a Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show video from when The Force Awakens came out. They had all the cast doing an a cappella singing of the theme song. That's my ringtone on my phone, and it went off while we were watching it on our Discord voice chat. And you thought that was part of like.
Well, and that was because of the ambulance stuff. Because when I heard
that
the
kept
sirens,
going on forever. Yeah.
When I heard the sirens, I thought that was on your end, and then I saw somebody tweet that they heard it too.
Yeah.
And so then when I heard the music, I thought it was another thing like that.
Which, like 5 minutes after we started our stream today, there were like 5 fire trucks that drove by my house. So I don't know if you heard those sirens or not, but.
Oh man, it was funny though. But no, I guess that's really my thing. Is it's like with all things, it's like I like hype, but like hype responsibly. I guess like don't be a jerk if you don't get the thing that you were hyped about. But also, let people have fun. Let people be excited. We're like I understand there's still movies coming out and TV shows coming out, but like I want to enjoy this while I can, and I want to take it all in. So if I'm not really bothering you, leave people be.
But thank you all for indulging us.
Yes.
I haven't looked because I've been afraid to, but if there's anyone watching, thanks for indulging us. I saw some funny comments as we went.
Yeah. Sorry if we were kind of ignoring you guys during our skit. We didn't want to break character too much. But Midway for hanging out with us was great. Bear was here. Neil, Dom, Poetic Injustice. A bunch of these guys have their own channels. Like Poetic has a channel. McYagi has a channel. Negotiator and Bradster, who are both in here. Boss Bounty. All make amazing content. You should check them out. If I'm missing somebody, it's not on purpose. But thank you guys so much for chilling with us through this weird thing we decided to do.
And when we come back next week, we'll have an actual Port Haven
an actual
Streamcast.
show.
But this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think unless some kind of crazy news does drop in the next week, I think we're actually going to talk about Galaxy's Edge stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do the marketing for Bob Iger.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there, though, with the parks and with all the books and comics that got announced also.
Yep.
But before we go, make sure you follow us on all the places, the ones we mentioned and the ones that we didn't. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and join our Discord. We've had a lot of good conversations there.
Yeah.
Recently
there's a link in the description to the Discord.
But about Legends and current canon stuff, and we talk about Resistance there. So if you're plugged into anything in Star Wars, whether it's new stuff or old stuff, we're talking about it there. You can find us on our forums and check out our blog site. And that Tumblr is still there. Like
it's somewhere.
I'm assuming we didn't get shut down for all the inappropriate content.
Because our blog post commenters started doing Tumblr posts.
Yeah, that number was not a lie. There were 65,000 spam comments on our blog site from October to January.
That did not meet family friendly standards either.
No, definitely not. But I think that's going to do it for us today, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.